The restaurant was bustling, full of chatter, clattering plates, and the smell of sizzling dishes filling the air. Waiters weaved through the tables, balancing trays of food, while the hum of conversation created a lively rhythm. Yet, in the midst of it all, one man walked through the front doors unnoticed, blending in as if he were just another customer. Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer of all time. The man who had faced the fiercest opponents in the world, who had conquered every challenge thrown at him inside the ring. But today, there was no ring, no crowd, no cameras, just a simple, ordinary restaurant. He wore a casual jacket, jeans, and a cap pulled low over his eyes. His steps were quiet, almost reverent, as he moved past the tables, observing. He wasn't here for fame. He wasn't here for attention. He was here for something far simpler, far more human. A meal, a moment of calm, and a chance to see the world as it really was. But then he heard it. A soft, muffled sound, almost like a whisper carried through the noise. A small sob. Ali stopped immediately, his eyes scanning the room. His gaze fell on a young server in the corner, her uniform slightly wrinkled, her hair falling across her face. She sat on a stool, shoulders hunched, hands trembling as she wiped away tears with the edge of her apron. No one seemed to notice her, or perhaps no one cared. Everyone was too caught up in their own work and their own day. The sight stopped Ali in his tracks. This was not what he expected to find when he walked into his own restaurant. He had always believed in strength, in confidence, in the power to face any opponent without fear. But here was a quiet, fragile courage, a young woman holding herself together in a world that often didn't make it easy for people like her. He approached her slowly, his presence gentle, careful not to startle her. Even a legend like Muhammad Ali understood the power of silence. Sometimes, the loudest message could come from the quietest gesture. "What's wrong, young lady?" he asked softly, kneeling down so he could meet her eyes. The world outside seemed to fade. The clatter of dishes, the chatter of customers, the busy rhythm of the restaurant, all of it disappeared. For a single moment, it was just Ali and the girl, two human beings connected by something far deeper than fame, money, or recognition. And in that moment, the greatest fighter the world had ever known realized that some battles weren't fought with fists. Some victories came from kindness, empathy, and the courage to care. It was a busy Monday afternoon at Ali's restaurant. The smell of fried chicken, grilled steaks, and fresh bread filled the air, mingling with the aroma of coffee and desserts. Plates clattered against each other in the kitchen, while waiters and servers darted through the dining area like dancers in a choreographed routine, balancing trays of steaming food and drinks. Customers laughed, talked loudly, and occasionally dropped silverware, adding to the symphony of chaos that made the place feel alive. Muhammad Ali walked through the front doors, almost unnoticed. His steps were light, but there was a quiet authority in the way he carried himself. He wore a simple jacket over a plain shirt, jeans, and sneakers. No sunglasses, no entourage, no flash of cameras. Just him, walking as one of the crowd, blending in with the everyday rhythm of life. He paused for a moment at the entrance, taking in the scene. He had seen this restaurant before, of course, but now he was here not as the owner or the celebrity everyone knew, but as an observer, a man wanting to understand the little details that often went unnoticed. He noticed the way a waiter balanced 3 plates at once, the way a little girl's laughter echoed through the hall, and the tiny scuff marks on the wooden floor where carts had been pushed countless times. Then, a sound cut through the busy hum of the restaurant. A soft, almost hidden sound, but it was impossible to ignore. Someone was crying. Ali's gaze immediately focused. He walked carefully through the tables, weaving between customers and staff, until he saw her, a young server sitting on a small stool near the corner, her head lowered, shoulders shaking. Her uniform was slightly wrinkled, apron tied unevenly, hair falling across her face. She dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, trying to hide her tears. No one seemed to notice her distress. The noise of the restaurant continued around her, but she was invisible to everyone but Ali. He knelt down beside her quietly, careful not to startle her. "Hey," he said softly, his voice gentle yet filled with presence. "Are you okay?" She jumped slightly, startled to see someone she didn't recognize, a man, calm and confident, looking directly at her. She tried to speak, but the words got caught in her throat. Finally, she whispered, I'm just tired. It's been a rough morning." Ali smiled faintly, a warmth in his eyes. "Sometimes the world can feel heavy," he said. "But it's okay to take a moment for yourself, to breathe. You're doing better than you think." The other staff and customers were beginning to notice. Phones slowly appeared as people whispered, recognizing the quiet figure kneeling beside the young server. Some gasped, others stared in disbelief. But Ali didn't seem to care. He was focused entirely on her feelings, on the small human connection that mattered more than anything else in that moment. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small note. "I like to leave reminders for people," he said, handing it to her. "Whenever you feel down, read this. Remember that strength isn't just about being tough. It's about kindness, patience, and keeping your heart open, even when things get hard." She looked down at the note, her eyes widening as she realized the words were signed, Muhammad Ali. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Tears ran freely now, but this time they were different, a mix of relief, gratitude, and awe. "Before we continue, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories like this." Ali's story isn't just about fame or boxing, it's about seeing the humanity in everyone, every single day. Ali had stayed quiet for a few moments, letting the noise of the restaurant wash over him. The clatter of dishes, the chatter of customers, the hurried footsteps of waiters, all of it created a rhythm he had come to understand over the years. But now, his focus was entirely on the young server in the corner. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the small note he had given her, and her shoulders sagged from exhaustion. He could see it all, the late nights, the long hours, the pressure of a demanding job that sometimes felt overwhelming. She wasn't just tired from work, she was carrying the weight of a world that rarely paused to notice her. And yet, there she was, standing, or sitting, rather, still trying to do her best. Ali leaned forward slightly. "Listen," he said softly. "Strength isn't about never falling. Strength is about what you do after you feel like you can't stand anymore." The young server blinked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had grown up seeing Muhammad Ali on television, the boxer, the champion, the legend. But here he was, kneeling beside her in a small corner of a crowded restaurant, offering words she never expected to hear. I just feel like I'm not good enough," she admitted, her voice barely audible above the background noise. "No matter how hard I try, it never seems to be enough. Everyone's watching, everyone's judging. I just don't know if I can keep up." Ali shook his head, smiling gently. "That's exactly when you need to remember who you are," he said. "It's easy to think that only the big victories matter, only the loud applause counts. But true strength is in showing up when no one is watching, in doing your best even when the world feels unfair." Around them, the restaurant had fallen into a kind of stunned silence. Customers paused mid-bite, waiters froze mid-step, and a few brave souls quietly pulled out their phones, recording the moment. There was something magnetic about Ali's presence, something that made even the busiest restaurant pause in respect. "You know," he continued, "I fought some of the toughest opponents you could imagine. I faced fear, pain, and disappointment. But the hardest battles are never in the ring. The hardest battles are the ones inside your own heart, the battles against doubt, against fear, against giving up when it feels like no one notices you." The server's eyes glistened with tears now. She looked down at her hands, then back at Ali. "But what if I fail?" she asked softly. Ali's smile widened, warm and reassuring. "Then you get up. Again and again. That's what makes you strong. Not winning every fight, not being perfect, but rising every time life knocks you down. That's real courage." A waiter, standing nearby, whispered to a colleague, "Is that Muhammad Ali?" Others peeked over counters and tables, murmuring, "It is. It really is him." The buzz of excitement mixed with awe, but Ali never once looked away from the young server. She was the center of his attention, the focus of a lesson no one else could teach. Then something unexpected happened. Ali stood slowly and reached over, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes people are harsh. Sometimes the world seems cruel. But you have a choice. You can let it break you, or you can rise above it. And I promise you, if you rise, you'll inspire more people than you'll ever know." Her lips trembled as she tried to respond, words failing her. Instead, she nodded, a single tear rolling down her cheek. It wasn't sadness anymore, it was relief, pride, and something new, hope. Ali glanced around the restaurant one last time. Everyone was watching now, phones in hand, cameras ready, but he didn't care. This wasn't about fame, or headlines, or showing off. This was about a quiet, powerful lesson, that respect, kindness, and encouragement could change someone's world in a single moment. He knelt back down, looking at the server's eyes. "Promise me one thing," he said. "No matter what anyone says, no matter how tired you feel, never stop believing in yourself. Because you've already got more strength than you realize." She nodded again, this time with a shaky but determined smile. Around them, whispers grew into soft applause. People were recording, commenting, even wiping their own tears. Ali gave a small nod, acknowledging them, but still, his attention remained on her. And in that moment, it became clear to everyone in the room. The battle inside her had been fierce, but thanks to a quiet, kind intervention from the greatest of all time, she had won a victory no one else could see, a victory that mattered more than any championship belt. The restaurant had been buzzing a minute ago, full of clattering dishes, laughing customers, and busy servers. But now, a quiet had settled over the room, a silence so powerful that even the hum of conversation seemed to fade away. Everyone's attention was drawn to the small corner where Muhammad Ali knelt beside the young server. The young woman's hands were trembling, not from fear this time, but from a mix of emotions she couldn't yet put into words. Relief, awe, disbelief, and a kind of pride she had never felt before all mingled together. Her chest heaved as she took a deep breath, finally looking up into the eyes of the man who had just reminded her of her own strength. The customers were frozen in their seats. Some had their mouths slightly open, unsure of what to do. Others were quietly whispering to each other. "Is that really him?" one customer asked in disbelief. "Muhammad Ali." Waiters and staff, who had been rushing around moments ago, stopped in their tracks. The clatter of trays and dishes came to a halt as they watched in stunned silence. A few of the servers whispered among themselves, "I can't believe he's here, in person, and he's talking to her like she matters, like she's important." Some brave customers began pulling out their phones. The flashlights blinked on as they recorded, capturing the rare and extraordinary moment. But Ali didn't seem to notice. His focus was entirely on the young server, on her emotions, and on the lesson he was silently teaching everyone present. Ali leaned forward slightly. "You know," he said quietly, "the world can be a tough place. People will judge. People will criticize. But what matters most is how you treat others, and how you treat yourself. You've already done something amazing today. You've kept going even when it was hard. That's what counts." The young server's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of recognition and gratitude. She had never expected anyone, let alone Muhammad Ali, to see her struggles, to acknowledge them, and to speak to them so directly. For the first time in a long time, she felt truly seen. Other staff members began to gather closer, forming a semicircle around the two of them. Some had never seen Ali in person before. Some had only heard stories. But all of them could feel the energy he carried, quiet yet commanding, gentle yet powerful, strong yet filled with empathy. An older server, who had been working at the restaurant for years, whispered to a younger colleague, "This is a lesson we all need. Not about fame, or money, or showing off, but about respect. About noticing people, even when they seem small or invisible." Meanwhile, Ali gently patted the young server's shoulder. "You don't need anyone's approval to know your worth," he said. "Keep working hard, stay kind, and never let anyone make you feel less than you are. Life isn't about the applause, it's about integrity, courage, and heart." As the words sank in, the energy in the room began to shift. Customers, once focused only on their meals, now watched in admiration. Staff, once caught up in the chaos of orders and deliveries, now felt inspired. A few wiped tears from their eyes, overwhelmed by the humanity of the moment. Then, quietly, Ali stood. The room seemed to breathe again, as if it had been holding its collective breath. He looked around at the people in the restaurant. "Remember this," he said, voice calm but firm. "Every person you meet is fighting a battle you can't see. Treat them with kindness. Treat them with respect. That is real strength. Not what you have in your hands, but what you have in your heart." He gave the young server a final reassuring nod, and she managed a shaky but grateful smile. Phones clicked, whispers turned into murmurs, and the atmosphere of the restaurant had changed completely. Where there had once been ordinary lunch service, now there was reverence. Not for fame, not for a celebrity, but for the lessons that mattered most: humility, courage, and empathy. And as Ali slowly walked toward the exit, a sense of awe filled the air. Customers whispered, some recording, some simply staring. Staff exchanged glances, silently agreeing that they had witnessed something extraordinary. Not a fight in a ring, not a celebrity appearance, but a small, powerful act that would stay with them forever. For the young server, everything had changed in a few minutes. She had been invisible, overlooked, exhausted, and overwhelmed. Now she felt empowered, seen, and inspired. And as Ali disappeared through the front doors, the entire restaurant seemed to hold a collective heartbeat, understanding in that moment that true greatness wasn't in trophies or fame, it was in moments like these. The restaurant remained quiet, though the murmurs of customers and staff slowly started to rise again. Phones were still out, videos being recorded, and people whispered to each other in disbelief. Ali had walked toward the exit, a calm presence in a room that had been transformed by his quiet words. Yet, even as he approached the door, something was about to happen that no one could have predicted. Just as the young server began to catch her breath, the front doors swung open. A sleek black car pulled up outside, its tires crunching softly on the gravel. 3 well-dressed executives stepped out, carrying folders and documents with the kind of urgency that only comes from dealing with matters of great importance. Their eyes were scanning the restaurant, looking for someone, and they didn't have to look long. "Mr. Ali," one of them called out, hurrying toward him. "We've been waiting for you, sir." The server froze, her hands gripping the edges of her apron. The customers turned toward the commotion, whispering and craning their necks to see what was happening. Ali stopped and turned slowly, a calm smile playing on his lips. The executives approached quickly, each of them bowing slightly out of respect. "We have the documents ready, sir," another said, "and the board is waiting for your instructions." Confusion rippled through the restaurant. Customers exchanged puzzled glances, unsure what they were witnessing. A few brave ones whispered to their neighbors, What's going on? Is he part owner?" Ali nodded to the executives and then turned his gaze back to the young server. "It's true," he said softly, almost as if letting her in on a secret. "I own this place now." The words hung in the air like an explosion. The server's eyes widened, her mouth opening slightly in shock. "Wait, you own the restaurant," she stammered, disbelief in every syllable. "Yes," Ali replied with a small, calm nod. "I wanted to see how things worked without people knowing who I was. I wanted to see the real faces, the real struggles, and the real courage of the people here. And today I saw it. I saw all of it." The customers gasped. A few of them began clapping softly, unsure if applause was appropriate, yet unable to stop themselves. The staff stared in awe. The young server's knees felt weak. She had been crying moments ago, overwhelmed by stress and exhaustion, and now she was standing in the presence of someone who wasn't just a legend in boxing, but also the person responsible for the very restaurant she worked in. Ali's eyes scanned the room again, landing on the manager who had been overseeing operations that day. He had noticed the way the manager sometimes overlooked staff, sometimes scolded, sometimes belittled. Ali's gaze lingered for a moment, and the manager suddenly felt the weight of being seen, truly seen, by someone whose presence alone commanded respect. The executives handed Ali the folders, but he didn't open them immediately. Instead, he looked at the young server once more. "You did well today," he said. "Even when things were hard, you stayed true to yourself. That's the kind of courage and dedication I want in this restaurant, and in life." Her lips trembled. She struggled to find words. I don't know what to say. I can't believe." Ali chuckled softly. "You don't need to say anything. Just keep being yourself. That's all I ask." Then he turned to the entire staff. "From today on, everyone will be treated with respect. Everyone. No matter their position, their age, or how long they've worked here. Because respect isn't about who you are, it's about how you treat others." The staff exchanged glances, some whispering excitedly, others silently wiping away tears. They could feel the magnitude of what was happening. Ali had not just entered their restaurant and offered a kind word. He had reshaped the culture, if only for a moment, and left an impression that would last a lifetime. The young server finally found her voice. "Thank you, sir," she said, voice shaky but full of sincerity. I won't forget this. Ever." Ali smiled and nodded, then finally walked toward the door, leaving the room buzzing with energy, emotion, and awe. Customers and staff alike were still whispering, replaying the events in their minds. What they had witnessed was not just a celebrity moment. It was a lesson, a revelation, a glimpse into the heart of someone who had spent a lifetime teaching strength, courage, and respect. As the black car pulled away, taking Ali with it, the young server looked around the restaurant, her chest still heavy with emotion. She realized she had been part of something extraordinary. Not just because Muhammad Ali had been there, but because she had seen, firsthand, what it meant to treat people with dignity and compassion, and how those small moments of care could leave a legacy far greater than fame or wealth. The room slowly returned to normal activity, but something had changed permanently. Staff moved with a renewed sense of purpose. Customers spoke in hushed tones, sharing what they had witnessed. And in the quiet corners of the restaurant, the young server clutched the note Ali had given her, smiling through tears, forever changed by the quiet power of respect, kindness, and humility. The restaurant slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but nothing felt the same. The clatter of plates and chatter of customers continued, yet beneath it all was a sense of awe, of quiet reverence, as if the space itself had been touched by something extraordinary. Staff moved with renewed purpose, glancing toward the corner where the young server sat, still holding the note Muhammad Ali had given her. She was wiping away tears but smiling now, a deep sense of empowerment radiating from her. The manager, who had been overseeing operations that day, sat frozen in disbelief. His mind raced. He had been there, watching Ali kneel beside a server, watching the entire scene unfold, yet he had been unaware of something critical. The man he thought was just another customer was the owner of the restaurant. The realization hit him like a punch, not physical, but far heavier. Ali had returned briefly before leaving, walking calmly through the restaurant one last time. His presence was magnetic, yet unassuming. He stopped by the manager's desk, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You've been managing this restaurant for a while," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "And that's important. But respect is the true measure of leadership. You have the power to make people feel valued, or small. Today, you saw the difference." The manager swallowed hard. I didn't know who you were, sir," he admitted, his voice shaky. I made mistakes. I'm sorry." Ali's eyes softened. "That's exactly the problem," he said. "You didn't know. And that's why humility matters. Not because someone famous is watching, but because every person you interact with deserves dignity. Every act of kindness counts, even when no one notices." The staff watched quietly, sensing the gravity of the moment. Ali then turned to the young server, who had been sitting silently, her eyes wide. "You stayed calm under pressure," he said. "You didn't let fear or stress control you. That's the kind of strength that matters, the kind that lifts people up rather than tearing them down." He paused, scanning the restaurant one final time. From this day forward, respect isn't optional here. It's the standard. And to recognize that, the person who stayed true, who stayed kind, who reminded everyone what real courage is, he turned to the young server. "From today, you are promoted to assistant manager. You've earned it." Gasps echoed across the room. Staff and customers alike couldn't believe what they had just heard. She stood, trembling, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of pride and accomplishment. I don't know what to say," she whispered, voice cracking. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Ali smiled gently. "No need to say anything. Just remember, leadership isn't about titles or recognition. It's about integrity, kindness, and helping others shine." Then, with a calm nod, he began walking toward the exit once more. Staff watched, spellbound, as he moved with the same quiet confidence that had carried him through the boxing ring, a reminder that true power is silent, measured not by applause, but by the difference you make in others' lives. Customers began whispering to each other, still recording videos, still stunned. "Did that just happen?" one murmured. He really promoted her?" "Yeah," said another. And he just left like it was nothing. Incredible. The manager, still seated, bowed his head, a wave of realization washing over him. He had learned something far more valuable than any management course. Respect, humility, and seeing people for who they truly are can change everything. From that day forward, he promised himself he would lead differently, guided by the quiet wisdom he had witnessed firsthand. The young server finally found her voice. "Thank you," she said again, looking at the staff and Ali before he left. "I will do my best. I promise." Ali gave a final smile, nodding once, and disappeared through the front doors. Outside, the sunlight caught his jacket, casting a quiet glow that seemed almost symbolic, a light reminder that true greatness shines brightest not in public applause, but in the lives you touch quietly and meaningfully. Back inside, the staff began whispering excitedly among themselves. Customers returned to their meals, but now with a newfound respect for the people around them. Even strangers were smiling at each other, as if some of Ali's quiet strength and humility had filtered into the atmosphere itself. And the young server? She held on to the note tightly, heart pounding. She had been recognized, valued, and inspired in ways she would carry for the rest of her life. And every time she faced a challenging day, she would remember the calm, commanding presence of Muhammad Ali, kneeling beside her, teaching her that real strength isn't shown in fights or fame, it's shown in kindness, respect, and courage under pressure. If this story inspired you, comment below with respect, and share where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more uplifting real-life stories that remind us what true strength really looks like. Sparkles. The restaurant had returned to its normal rhythm. Plates clattered, conversations resumed, and the hum of the kitchen carried on. Yet, nothing inside felt ordinary anymore. Something invisible had shifted, a quiet energy lingering in the air. Customers were still whispering about what they had just witnessed, staff moved with a newfound purpose, and in the corner, the young server sat, holding the note Muhammad Ali had given her tightly against her chest. She smiled through tears, a deep sense of pride and hope radiating from her. Ali's visit, though brief, had left a permanent mark. He had walked in quietly, unnoticed, and yet his presence had transformed the entire room. Not because of fame or celebrity, but because of humility, kindness, and the ability to see people, really see them, in moments when they were most vulnerable. The lesson was clear. True power isn't measured by money, titles, or fame. True power is quiet. It's in the way you treat people when no one is watching. It's in small acts of compassion, in recognizing someone's struggle, in giving a word of encouragement to the person who feels invisible. The young server had learned it firsthand, but so had everyone else present in that restaurant. Ali had shown that respect isn't something you demand, it's something you give freely. The young server, once exhausted and overlooked, was now empowered. She had been reminded that her worth wasn't tied to how much she could do or how fast she could work, but to the integrity, courage, and kindness she carried in her heart. Even the manager, who had once been focused on authority and control, now understood the weight of true leadership. It wasn't about being feared or commanding attention. It was about seeing the people around you, helping them grow, and treating them with dignity. He had been humbled, and in that humility, he had gained a deeper understanding of what it truly meant to lead. Customers, too, felt the change. They had come expecting a meal, a routine lunch perhaps, and instead witnessed a lesson in humanity. Many left with a new perspective, quietly thinking about how they treated people in their own lives, friends, family, strangers, or co-workers. A single moment had rippled outwards, touching more hearts than anyone could measure. And for the young server, the note in her hand was more than just paper. It was a reminder that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it's the quiet choice to keep going, to remain kind, and to stay true to yourself, even when the world doesn't notice. She had learned that strength is not in recognition or applause, but in resilience, humility, and the ability to lift others even when you are tired. Ali had walked out of the restaurant quietly, leaving behind no fanfare, no cameras, no demand for attention. And that, perhaps, was the most powerful part. He had taught a lesson that money, fame, and strength alone could never teach, that respect, humility, and empathy are the true measures of greatness. So remember this, every person you meet is fighting battles you may never see. Treat them with kindness. Lift them when they stumble. Respect them when no one is watching. Because the world will be brighter, stronger, and better for it. If this story inspired you, Take a moment to reflect. Type respect in the comments if you believe that humility and kindness are real strength. Share where you're watching from. I want to see all the kind hearts around the world. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, so we can keep sharing stories that inspire courage, empathy, and human greatness. True power is silent. True respect is earned. And a single act of kindness can change lives forever.